Oh, lady talking to us. Okay, so it's recorded now. So we have this going on. So let me go and jump into the chapter 2. But you know what? I just realized that we might do something new here. And that would be, I don't know if you found out, but as well, that these summaries in these chapters are quite useful little cheater. I mean, I keep saying cheater, but you know, I'm just saying it as a joke. So this is a nice condensed overview, some of these summaries of the whole chapter. And for quite some time in my life, I usually, you know, look at the end before I go to the beginning. And I think it's a good idea. It gives you like the big picture with some of the details that will not make any sense to you, possibly at this point, but it somehow easier plugs in for me, you know, once you go back and start to do the nitty gritty. So this was the chapter 1, and you will find probably a lot of the answers even to the questions right here, or if not directly, then it will show you where probably you should be looking in that chapter. So I think the summary is quite good, and I would start with the end at this point as well, and I'll want to do it with you collaboratively. So let me see, and we'll read through these one paragraph at a time, one student at a time, to each other, so we can get a grasp of what this chapter is about. Wait a minute, am I in the right chapter? No, I'm not. I was just looking at that. Okay, let's go here. Chapter summary. All right. So it's all about these objects, basically accounts, right? So it gives us really nice summary here. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we can go alphabetically, or we can go, you know, there'll be a chance for all of you, so you don't have to really rush in. But let me try to zoom in a little bit so I can see it better, everybody, as well. And I'm just going to move around. So you should be able to see this for us. So I'm going to start with the first one, okay? So we're talking about the OUs, and that's the smallest scope of the objects being organized in, right? So OU, the building blocks of the Active Directory structure in a domain, can be designed to mirror company organization chart, which means how do you create those, you know, OUs, or it's up to you. We will see that, but that's you know, just a fact here to be clear on. So we don't want to elaborate on this right now. We just want to quickly read through this because they're really useful. Delegation of control can be used to give certain user some management authority in an OU, just a fact. You need to be familiar with OU permissions and permission inheritance to understand delegation of control. Good fact. All right, so that was me. Next one, very short one here. Who is going to read to us? Come on, guys. I mean, I would ask Ajo, but her mic, let's try Ajo. Ajo, talk to us. Read the next one.
Okay, from the OU permission. Can you hear me? Professor, can you hear me?
I can hear you, so I'm waiting if you would like, but there's too much feedback, so I think you will be unfortunately excluded from our reading session. So let's try somebody else.
Okay, no problem.
Who wants to try next?
I will, Professor.
Great, thank you.
OU
Andish.
and permission inheritance work much the same way as they do in the file system. You must enable the advanced feature options in Active Directory users and computers, ADUC, to view an object security tab and further folders and tabs.
Excellent, great, thank you. So, this is a cool fact here that if you remember something or know something about the file system permissions, then it's very similar, but in this case, it's applied to the objects of the Active Directory. Now, these things, they typically annoy me extremely. ADUC, and now there's like a lot of those, ADAC, and the good part here is that sometimes not even in the chapter, you don't see the spell out. What the heck is ADUC? Fortunately here, you get a little prep, what is ADUC? I don't expect even myself to memorize and remember all of those. They're changed as well. But here it at least gives us a little prep for this, ADUC, Active Directory Users and Computers. All right, cool. Next, please.
I can do the next one.
Harrison, thank you.
User accounts provide a way for users to authenticate to the network and contain user information that can be used in a company directory. There are 3 categories of users in Windows: local, domain, and built-in. The 2 built-in accounts are administrator and guest.
Yes, excellent. So built-in, this is no difference to a local machine, right? So we have also guest and administrator. Actually, you might know from like ITM 106, definitely we cover that, and maybe elsewhere. Yes, there are these 2 default accounts, but what about them? What is also true about these 2 accounts? They are there. You install Windows and their administrator and guests are there, but what's true about them also?
They should be disabled.
They are disabled. So I think you remember probably from the 106, I have the question there on the quiz as well. I think even on the exam or something. They're by default disabled. So when you installing any Windows machine, it always prompts you to create a user, right? So that's gonna be the active user, member of administrator group, but these 2 are by default disabled, okay? So what's new here? That we don't have just locals, but we have also domain accounts now, right? So those 3 types. I'm gonna, wait a minute, categories, built in. Yeah, we'll go into that. Built in, all right. So this one is a longer one. It's split here. All right. Next, please.
I only can see half of it and mine is not popping up. Active Directory users and computers and Active Directory Administrative Center and are GUI tools for creating and maintaining user accounts. User account names must be unique in a domain, not be case sensitive, and must be 20 or fewer characters. A complex password is required by default. A naming standard should be devised before creating user accounts. At the very least, the user's full name, login name, and password are required to create a user account in the ADUC.
Excellent. So now they rely already on ADUC, I guess, right? So, so there's, I mean, this statement here that they say that they must be in user accounts. User account names must be unique, obviously, in a domain, not to be case sensitive, not be case sensitive. I mean, this is a given. Those names are not case sensitive. When you type in, there's not that much case sensitivity within Windows. There's much more case sensitivity in Unix or Linux. And username, either way you take it from, it's local or domain, there's no case sensitivity. I'm not sure when they say like, the must thing, They're just not case sensitive. 20 characters, sounds like a number that I might ask you, right? I don't think it's that important, but there's a limit of 20 characters. Complex is by default, so that's the policy, okay? So you can change it. You know, you can go into your server's policy, domain policy versus local policy, and you can change it. So default by standalone machines is without any of these restrictions. So the passwords can be just, you know, one character, no restrictions. I think they changed it for commercial Windows, like the Windows 10 now, that they have something enforced. But during the installations from the ISO images, it doesn't really have any restrictions. So here is a must. So all those standard restrictions are in place by the policy, but can be changed, right? Can be removed, not recommended. Naming standard, oh my gosh, naming standard, yeah. Because the environment where you're looking at those objects, let me see here if the machine's still running. So we have the users right here. So if you, it's a little bit different than local users. You can see that there's a mix of users and groups as well. You can see the built-in administrator right here. Usually network admins are, oh, great. What happened now? I have to refresh this thing. I think it was just faking the screen there. Okay, now I'm back. All right, so if you go by description, you can usually recognize any manually added users there by not having any description. It's not a good idea to not have descriptions, but most of the time that's the fact, okay? What happens with new users, okay? So if you create a new, you can see all these objects you can create, user is one of them, and description will come up as well. So we will mention, I think it's mentioned there too about templates, which means you can copy users. So it's good idea, you know, to have like a template of user or a group. Some of the buildings you cannot make copies, or there's some features that, you know, restriction there. But if I create a user, let me create one here. Okay, so that's gonna be, it doesn't require a last name, but you need to have a username, otherwise you cannot proceed to the next one, right? So that automatically plugs you into the domain here, right? So it creates an object there. And this is backward compatibility. And you can see some of the options for the password, must change. So even in the book, I'm surprised they sort of, not book, the MindTap Labs, they would, you know, make you practice, I guess, to cannot change the password and never expires. You know, a lot of people are doing it. Not good idea, right? So you want to do it to your own account as the admin, so you don't have to be bothered to change password like every other user is. So again, the practice, you know, when you're resetting password would be that you do give the user some simple password like password1 or something, or exclamation if you need complexity, and with the O as 0 or something. And then you force the user to change the password at the next logon to have his own personal password. Like the practices you hear that, you know, so tell me what password do you want? Well, that should not be really done. Then another one, and I'm going to actually do it. And you can see that it will not let me create it because of the policy, right? It didn't warn me ahead, but the policy is in place by default. I could go to the policy editor and change that, and I could have a password on the server without, user without password. Not good idea, right? So I will not go to change that. So I'm going to do some password here. Okay. I think I'm doing the same one that they have. I don't have a special character, and it works without it too. And then you can see I didn't do description, right? And then you can copy them. So the idea, you know, about the naming, if you want to have an easy overview of different users being different types of users, let's say by department or by other things, then you might use some convention that will sort it out. One of those, let me just create another one, because you can make copies. All these settings, there are so extensive settings that this chapter is discussing, you know. So you might have a template. You can create a user that becomes a template for your network. And then you don't have to fill it out each time you're creating a new user. You're just going to make a duplicate of that user. And yes, I'm going to have to do, you know, I'm going to have to do this name and some of this information here. Okay. And I'm going to have to go through the password, but anything else, all those complex things that we had, and you see this is already copied from the user, right? So these settings that I changed that are not recommended are now already copied here. So using templates, okay? And so now I put the password in there, and now I have a new user, and all the settings that I originally created for, you know, the first user. So that's one simple technique, how you can avoid elaborate work of, you know, creating users one by one. Make templates, and not just individual users, but any of these objects, including groups, okay? So you have security, you know, objects, and you have also, you know, the domain objects. So what I wanted to say here, that the naming would, you see it frequently, of templates of any of the objects would start with a special character like an underscore, okay? So this didn't change it for, would have to be the display name here with a special character. No, that's actually coming already from the properties. I would have to start with one of those. Or computer as well. I keep doing the users. Doesn't matter. But if you start with one of these, then they will be all easily sortable from this list, and you can get easily to your templates to make the copies of and change the names then in there later, okay? So I'm just gonna duplicate everything here. But it will show up with one of those special characters. So here, because this is a brand, I didn't use the copy for the template. Oh, I have to uncheck it. It's just warning, right? And I do have to go through this because of the policy, which is annoying, but oh, okay. But can be avoided. But I just wanted to show that, you know, once you have one of these and then you sort by them, then it will all show up in one place, regardless what it is, and you will have your templates. So that's just, you know, convention for the purpose of the templates as an example, okay? Out. There is another example that I have in like in the lab here. Where's the lab? Oh, I started the lab here. You see that they do have a convention in the names of the computers here, PLab. Okay, actually, we don't have to look at this. We are in there, which means the computers are right here. So it starts with some kind of a common denominator. Like a long time ago, the IT department at NOVA, they were naming in their domain the computers starting with just their inventory number. So they have this inventory system of numbers, and all the computers started with that. And then they added the room number at the end of the computer name. Well, that had no practical really, I mean, it was totally obvious. If I want to start to work with these computers here and sort them by labs, you can create here specific folders for, campus, then labs and so on. And you want to have computers nicely organized, and you want to fish them out of the list here. You want to put the names starting with your, LO for campus, then room LW or HEC, and then you can put your inventory number at the end, but start with a hierarchy that can let you easily sort out these, sorry, that was my phone. So that the naming convention can, and I can see it not being thought through in many places, like locations, even on hard drive when they make folders hierarchy. So here, if you are managing a large environment, you want to definitely plan this through. And I sort of the same way how they explain, the hierarchy of the objects within the domain, then naming computers or user accounts and your templates, you should follow some kind of a rule that you establish so that it's easy for you to organize them, find them, and manage them in that sense. So it's a simple little statement here, but it really makes a big impact if you're managing couple hundred, even just couple hundred machines or objects in a domain, okay, the naming convention. Next, please. Sahiba, how are you? Hello, is Sahiba there? Wait a minute, open up your mic and read our next paragraph. Oh, that didn't work. That was Agile. Sahiba, can you try to test your mic, please? Read this user templates facilitate. Sahiba?
Sorry, I had like the settings turned off from my mic, so I had to go back in and enable it.
You see, that's a great practice. And your mic works perfectly. Wonderful.
Okay, so the user templates.
Yes?
Okay. User templates facilitate creating users who have some attributes in common, such as group memberships. Administrators can use the multiple edit feature of ADUC to edit certain fields for several users at once.
Excellent. So we already, I think, mentioned that. Multiple edit features, fields, several users at once. Okay, so I can already just demonstrate here. Just like you do with a file manager, I guess. If you right click, you can go to properties, and it's minimum in many cases. In this case, it's just the description, but it can be very practical. If you're now joining, again, users into a particular group, or they're part of some, organization or something, then you can just change the description and it will automatically change the description of all of the objects, right here. This would be filled out for all of them at the same time. So it's quite useful, okay? All right, so that was, there's the next one. They have a longer one here. Thank you, Sahiba. Who is next? Who wants to try? Some bold man. Reese, what about Reese? Can you try if your mic is working well? No. Diego. Reese, I don't have a mic. Oh, come on. You have mic. I just opened it. Say something, Reese. Why is it showing mic? Maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe it's just the default icon for anybody joining. Reese is just too shy. I don't have a mic. I don't know. Actually, I take it back. Where is me? Actually, because you see here, this is me on the bottom here. I'm feeding the camera here. I guess I am, right? Yeah, I am still. But when I was joining from the phone, I just canceled the audio, so it doesn't show it. But I have a hard time believing that Zoom will show the mic if there is not one. I don't know. I think it can see
If
a
you
mic.
join Zoom using the computer audio and not calling in on a phone, it shows the mic, even if you have a mic installed or not.
So I have the mic on the desktop.
Yeah, when it shows that little microphone thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have a mic like installed in your computer, it'll still show that because you're.
It will still show that?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize that. So now I learned something new. Okay.
Weird.
So on my, on the iPhone here, I just intentionally, when it was asking me, I just canceled it, so it would not provide it there. But I guess, oh, there's also a choice, I think, to join with a phone, which
you can. There's a choice that you can call in.
Yeah,
it'll give you a number to call in.
Right, and then I guess in that's why. Maybe it shows because it would not know if you're actually calling in or something. I don't know.
In some of the meetings, there's a choice to join without audio as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely new into this type of Zooming, conferencing, and all that type of stuff. So I don't know those type of nuances. Okay. So who is gonna read for us this next paragraph here? Oh. We had Adriana, our shy girl, Adriana.
No.
Hi, Adriana.
This chapter covers the user account properties in the general account profile and member of tabs. The account tab contains information that controls many aspects of login on the domain, such as logon name, logon hours, logon location, account logout, and account expiration. The Profile tab contains information about where a user's profile data is stored and can specify a logon script. The member of tab list groups the user belongs to and can be used to change group memberships. Every new user is added to the domain users group automatically.
Excellent. Let me see if there is a, so yeah, this is now about the properties of the users. So there's a lot of them, but there might be some facts that we need to sort of during the process when we work with them, that we'll be stopping by at. So this was the first one. Thank you, Adriana. That was great. It was a long one here. So this is the properties when you open up the user, right? So there's a lot of things, even logon hours. So I guess it is probably the best if you go and check and click through them and see, what's in there. So you can see here, you can restrict it to the computers only. You can restrict by default, it's all permitted, but you can restrict, when they can log in and so on. So you don't want like employees, being on your domain at certain times. So there's a lot of details. That's why I said the templates, are so useful that you discuss this with your organization all the way to the management, what's going to be, what kind of information you want to keep track about your users and all that stuff. So you create a template with all the common information, and then you just fill out the rest individually. So that's part of the practice there in this chapter, to review all of these. Depends on the configuration, the size of the desktop. it will be easier navigated on a large resolution. You can see all of the tabs in rows because the resolution is low in this little VM, and then you have to actually inconveniently scroll through all of this like that. But that's what they were describing here, right? So logon script can be also added. A lot of it is true for local users as well. You can have that. Some of it, not a lot of it. There is an overlap. There's an overlap. There's no logon hours, of course, there. So let's go to the next one here. Okay. Next student, please. Christopher.
Yes.
How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. I hope your scooter is charged. Are you zooming through the neighborhood on your scooter?
Yes, of course. No, I'm obviously practicing social distancing, but yes, I am zooming around.
Well, you can still be distant while zooming on your scooter, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You need to get out of the house somehow. I guess still we're not completely locked in the house yet.
Yeah, I go to the grocery store sometimes.
Exactly.
That's about all I do.
Yep.
Since home.
So far so good, I guess. I know that they were saying
Actually, I've been staying home so much. I actually found the privilege escalation in Windows, which is pretty cool. Been kind of practicing with that stuff.
So what if you would read for us this paragraph right here in front of you? Can you see it? The first one on the left?
Groups are, okay, so yeah, okay. So groups are the main security principle used to grant rights and permissions. The two groups types are security and distribution, but only security groups are used to assign permissions and rights. The group types can be converted from security to distribution and vice versa. The group scope determines the reach of a group's application in a domain or a forest, which security principles in a forest can be group members, and which forest resources a group can be assigned rights or permissions.
Excellent.
There are three groups. Do I keep reading?
I mean, I don't mind at all since you started there. It's but we were like one paragraph at a time, but that's good enough for now. Thank you. So what do you think, guys, about the reading? I think it's a great thing because it keeps us focused, I guess, a little bit on what we're doing. And so here, two types. So if you look at and you would be creating group, okay, then you have a choice, right? So distribution or security group, and distribution is just what it says, and it mentions it there that it's like an email list, right? So if I show you, let's say here in our email here, let's see, I'm gonna try to all right, so here's email. So let's see, IET. So you can see this is our department, right? So there's a group, okay, IET adjuncts, and we have IET full-time. All right, so these are the groups, okay? So these are the distribution groups. And this is one example of how they can be used. So I can expand it, and that group has all these users. So now you can see 47 adjuncts in our IET department. And here is the distribution group for all the full-time employees, okay? So you can actually see right now all people in our department, our virtual department, and it's 150 recipients. So it's a lot of people. And I'm one of them right there somewhere. on that list. Okay, so these are examples of distribution groups, and that's how you create them. And it can be either one of these. So these are security groups. Okay, so this is a security group. You can convert it as well, and then it just behaves like a distribution group or vice versa with the properties. Okay, so that's this part. Group scope. Okay. So let's try here the types of the groups. All right. Next one. Who is next? Oops. What did I just do? I clicked on myself, but oh, I'm still in there. Okay, cool. Harrison just opened up his mic. Are you going to be reading again?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could go again unless you wanted to.
Yeah, it was such a great voice on the mic. That's probably the mic, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay. There are 3 group scopes in Active Directory: domain, local, global, and universal. Local groups are found on domain member computers and standalone computers. The recommended use of groups can be summarized with acronyms AGDLP and AGGUDLP. Groups can be nested as long as the rules for group membership are followed. Group scope can be converted with some restrictions. There are default groups in the built-in and user folders, and there are some special identity groups with dynamic membership that can be managed.
Excellent. Cool, thank you. So let's see, let's go and built-in default groups in the built-in and user folders. So as I said, that those that will have descriptions typically will be the ones that are outside of the scope of those defaults, right? So these are users. There are no default computers. That means they were added there. The computers automatically get in. They have the permissions during the joining, okay? If you're joining a domain. So this one is a domain controller. I forgot how it looks in the properties. Here, it looks the same, basically. So you don't see here on a standalone machine this listed anything here. You will always have a name, right? But in this case, again, DNS, right? So it's mapping to the DNS in this case, as we know. So if you would be, joining a domain, in this case, it's already part of the domain. But this would be the case if you would be joining a domain, then you can. Now here's the guy, right? So he's the man. You cannot really change on this primary domain controller, but you would be joining the domain on any standalone machine here, or you would disjoin also domain. I'm not sure now when I think of this, when you're disjoining, when you're leaving domain, I believe the object here, the computer will stay, but any new machine that you're joining, a domain will automatically show up here in the computers. Just an example of those. So this, of course, domain controller. So we have right now just this one domain controller here. I guess not from the machines that are on the network. They're also not running, but they would still be showing. So there's just one domain controller right now here. All right, so that's for this paragraph. All right, so this one is split between the two columns here. So let me read that one myself. Computers that are domain members have computer accounts. So I just looked at that. In Active Directory, domain users logging onto a member computers can use single sign-on forest-wide and perform Active Directory searches. Computers can be managed by using group policies and remote MMCs. So the Microsoft Management Console, where you can You can do it directly from the domain controller with many tools without, you know, the snap-ins in MMCs, but the MMC is available on any other computers. You can even have these tools, domain tools, added to a standalone computer if it's on the network, and those tools would, you know, you can authorize them to have access to it. So, but normally they would be members of domain. Okay, so we have just a few more to go. There's a short one here for somebody. Terry, how are you doing? One short one paragraph. Can you read to us? Please. Please. Terry, not there. Maybe she is not there. Maybe she just left to get her coffee up.
I
No?
can read. I can
Terry,
take the short one.
no, who is that now? Who is speaking? Let me see.
It's Sylvia.
Sylvia.
Yeah.
Hi, Sylvia.
I want the short one.
Thank you.
Okay, the computer accounts are created manually by an administrator or automatically when a computer joins a domain. By default, computer accounts are created in the computer's folder, but to use group policies, they must be moved to an OU that has a group policy linked to it.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. So that's already one, you know, the technique to be used. So these are all, you know, OUs. So you can create, and you will be creating yeah, these when you will be doing the labs. Okay. So as you can see, it's as easy as that. So these are just all these different OUs, and then you can organize OUs inside of these OUs. And you would want to, if you want to apply, as it says in the paragraph, different changes. So these OUs have the implication, and you can just drag and drop them just like regular folders. Okay, so I can just, you know, moving object can prevent your existing system from working the way you desire, blah, blah, blah. Of course, there are big implications when you do that. Moving an OU can affect the way the group policies are applied and so on. So yes, there are definitely these implications. This is just exactly what the paragraph said in there. But I just did that, and now I have a user here, right? So you can organize, and it's just not for the visual, it's actually for the purpose of the, oh, my machine just died. I just timed out because I didn't pay attention to the timer. That's not a big deal. I think the machine still will be up when I go right back in there. Is that true? Nope. You see, I didn't extend the timer. We must be here more than an hour already. Okay. No surprise there. So it's booting up. So let's go back here. All right. So we have 2 more paragraphs and we'll be done. Who else? Eric, maybe. Andish? Andish already read, right? I forgot. Andish, how are you?
I'm doing good, Professor. I read already, but I don't mind reading another one.
Yeah, it's cool, right? It's useful.
Absolutely. Computer accounts can be deleted or disabled, just as user accounts can be. When a computer leaves the domain, its associated computer account is disabled automatically. If the same computer rejoins the domain, the account is enabled again. When the computer needs access to the domain again, you can re-enable the computer account.
Wow, thank you. Now this one is full of facts, interesting facts, also worth almost rereading. You know, I was not even able to follow this whole thing. So some of it was already clear, we said. So accounts can be deleted, disabled, that's obvious, just as users. The computer accounts, right? When computer leaves, its associated computer account is disabled, okay, is disabled. You know, there's this thing about deleting accounts, especially the security accounts. You do not want to delete accounts without thinking it through. If, you know, users, if employees leaving, you would want to promptly disable accounts, but not necessarily deleting them, because it has big implications if you would need to trace back any information in the network that the user was creating. It might be harder, if not impossible, to get to it. So you want to disable account because there's a lot of security related, like keys, encryption keys for it's all stored, and it if you delete it, it can be removed. So disabling is a keyword rather than deleting about anything in your network admin, okay? If the same computer rejoins the domain, the account enabled. So yeah, I said it will stay there, but I didn't mention that it will be disabled and then re-enabled when you join back, okay? And needs access to the domain again, you have to re-enable the computer account, okay? So you have to manually re-enable it, okay? Cool, last one. Who would be the last one? Jose. Jose can read to us something, right? Can you try? Do you have a mic?
Yes, I do.
Cool.
All right. You can automate account management by using command line tools such as DSADD and Dismod or PowerShell commandlets. There are also the bulk import-export command line programs, CSVDE and LDIFDE. Command line tools can be simplified by using batch files and piping.
Excellent. Thank you, Jose. So yeah, that is definitely the, as we know, possibly pain in the butt stuff using the command line. So all of these commands, these particular ones that they have listed here, they exist pretty much forever since the ancient times of Microsoft servers. So these particular, that means they will not be restricted, you know, to PowerShell. They will work in PowerShell, but they work here as well. This DS add, if you just type one of them, it will give you the list of all of them. So this is the list of those DS commands, and then you can get help on each one of them. Okay, so here you can see a help for the DS add. You can add computers. So for scripting, you know, you can easily use these and make automation. Of course, you know, what we looked at in the with these tools here, this is all good and nice for some relatively, you know, short or small steps to perform here, and it's very user friendly. But once you need to do something on a larger scale, then you want to create scripts using these commands to do those things, okay? All right, so this is another tool, the CSV. I think, I don't know if they let you practice it or not. I forgot, but you can create your yeah, if you have already existing users with their emails and with their, you know, whatever, you can just have a spreadsheet, a regular Excel spreadsheet, and you organize it in the same way how the domain, and the best way is probably to export first you would export in the CSV, which can be directly opened in the spreadsheet. And then in the spreadsheet, you might merge maybe a list of your employees or a list of your computers that were generated or written down somewhere else. And then you will just merge these information together within an Excel, and then you export it. And then you can just use one of these commands here to import it back into your domain controller in the Active Directory. So you don't have to use these, tools then to do it one by one. Okay, so for large scale type of deployment, that's where these tools are available. And oops, there's one of these guys. Did I close that myself? I guess, yeah, I guess I did. So let me close this all the way. All right, so let's go here. And I'm not sure now if the CS VDE does have any help here showing up. Just a little bit. So this one is the export, and as I said, easily then to work with in the spreadsheet. Much easier than doing it manually, like typing a lot of stuff. Notice here, this would be the way how the canonical name, which domain, and so on. So this is the convention, the X500 convention, how information is stored in the database. And then if you do it on the command line, then it's definitely pain in the butt to fill this all in manually. If you're doing, few, it's okay. Otherwise, it's good to practice, using the spreadsheets, then export it, merge it with some list that you have, and then import it back. If you're doing hundreds of them, it's gonna save you time in the long term, comparing to do this with the GUI tools of the operating system like this one. Okay. All right. So that was the big picture, and I think really pretty much excellent way to go through the material. We can just briefly. This is the first chapter. We're done with that one. I can just briefly review the chapter 2 here. Reese doesn't have a mic. All right, yeah, we'll learn that. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, so we said at the beginning that you can organize them in any way you want. Let me pull it up here. So here, this is the flip side here. You have by department and then the groups within the departments, or you can go the other way around, right? So it is within the domain, then locations here, right? So you can start with location and then have the departments within location or other way around. So that, like I said, the obvious mistake that I saw how to deal with the organization of your computers names was, first your campus, then your room, and then if you want to have your asset numbers part of your computer names. So it depends on the numbers, how many objects, will be in each, what makes it easier. It's good probably to practice first to see. So this is just a general concept of, matching your needs of managing the objects. So you can delegate, okay, so there's some rules about the delegation. So by default, not everybody can do these type of tasks, and you don't want anybody just do all of those tasks, so you can delegate the control, okay? There are some examples here. Not gonna go through all of those, okay? Don't show. I'm just gonna go really quickly through these. Users, computers, users, groups, computers, that 3 different principles, security principles, and they will be organized. Okay, Again, acronyms, access controls list. So if you go, as we said, it's similar to the files, right? So this is the way how you have the database on your hard disk in the file system. So I can look at, what is the access for different groups on this particular location. So now you can interpret what these are from the list, right? Read, write, and so on. So this is sort of the similarity. You can control it through these commands. So actually this one is the new version, the iCalc, and that works on any file system, any NTFS file system, NTFS file system, computer standalone. It's nothing to do with domain. It's just that, as they mentioned, you can control similarly these access control lists for objects in the domain. Okay. There's object owner as well, and that works on the level on objects on hard disk as well, outside of the domain system. System control list. Okay, what can you do? Permissions, read, write, and you can allow or deny, and it can be for different scopes as well. Okay, so there's some similar to the files, just to imagine, what you would be able to do. Okay, so this is about the users and computers, and you can enable some advanced features. So I think you will be practicing in one of the labs as well. This is from here. In the properties, you can go to, no, wait a minute. View menu. View menu. Advanced features. All right, here they are. So from view menu, you can see these advanced features. So there's these special containers here that are discussed there as well. Lost and found. That's rare. They're really unique situations when computers are removed from domain and then coming back to the domain, and they have now different accounts. You can find some stuff in the lost and found. So they're usually really special situation cases here. TPM devices, I don't think the computer, these are virtual guys, right? So let's see, TPM MSC. There is a snap-in for TPMs, so we can actually check directly, but most likely, yeah. This is a virtual machine, so I'm sure the hardware where it sits does have a TPM, but the virtual environment is not propagating it down here. So it doesn't see the chip on the motherboard. Now I want to minimize that. Okay. Oops. But they would be showing up right here. So that's another unique one. So there's some unique containers that can be enabled. Okay. The properties of each, so object, security, attribute editor, blah, blah, blah. This looks similar to just like any kind of a, local group as well. So this is the security tab. Okay. SAM. So security account manager. Windows machines not part of the domain store accounts in their SAM. So this file is part of registry. Now I cannot remember if the domain controller, let me look at it, because domain controllers, of course, move everything. They don't have local accounts as well. So let me just check. I don't even remember now. If we go to the registry here, Yeah, there's a SAM here. So these are just the default files. So you see this is the whole registry of the computer. But as you can see, very little has some current date here, which means this was when the computer was installed and all these registry files were generated. But at some point, this one was promoted to a domain controller. And I would suspect that that was very close to this date here, which is almost 4 years ago here, right? And that's the SAM. So if you look at any local computer, that would be a different story. So I don't, yeah, well, I could look at my computer. Or actually you see that computer, the virtual student, that would be a good place. So this is where local computers store their information, the accounts, encrypted, right, hashed, security account manager, SAM database. But in the Active Directory, it's all different. We saw the locations were, you know, actually, we should be able to see that right here as well, right? In the, do you remember the names? It was on the quiz. Here's one. Okay, so this is one piece. And some information, you hear these files were changed. Okay, so this is one part of the database. We learned the first chapter, you know, what do they store here. So this is how the files look like. Though it's not big, there are just few items here. So 120 megabytes. So, but it probably will be the bare minimum. Once you have a larger network, all these folders will be growing, but not enormously. It's not like a huge piece. So this is where the information about the objects are for Active Directory versus your SAM database in your config registry file, right? Oh boy, yeah. So this is how you can view the properties. If you have a large resolution, you can see all the tabs in a nice little overview. Otherwise, you have to scroll through them. Okay. You have local administrators and then domain administrators. So once, again, on a domain controller, you don't have any local accounts. This would be on any domain members, okay? The local administrators will be, but typically they're not used for much because you ideally would want to have only domain users accessing your computer. So if something goes wrong, you disjoin your domain, then you would automatically start using local accounts. So you do have to have local account and know and remember, store the passwords for that. Built-in accounts. Guest is disabled, I mentioned that. Account can have a blank password. Yeah, that's not good, right? Should be renamed. So that's a convention used for also the administrator accounts to rename it. So it cannot be easily, you know, attacked by knowing that it's a default account. There's not a really good reason for guest accounts. I tried once to use it for like the lab type of purposes. I was hoping that profiles would be automatically cleared when you log off from the guest. There are some things that are cleared, not all of it. So I don't think there's a big practical use. I didn't see it much use the guest accounts. So the idea is that it's a shared place somewhere in a public place or shared place in the organization where you want to be able anybody to get in and maybe just open up a browser. And then when you log off, or your browser history is gone, or your files that you downloaded are gone. It doesn't work like that exactly on the guest. There's some cleanup going on. There are some restrictions there, but not a big practical user. These are the third-party tools that work better. when creating a user account in Active Directory, keep the following. Okay. Unique, blah, blah, blah. We already had that there in the summary, so nothing new. Complex, yes, okay. Standard for naming convention. Okay, so we saw this. Okay, we have we saw these checkboxes. All right, right here. This is the default, and I would think it should be a followed type of thing. When you are changing, when you're resetting, you have to, just like any other accounts, if you wanna change. Where did I put my new department? I guess that was gone, right? No, the user is still. No, that's gone. That's gone. Okay. But if you right click on an account, you can reset password, right? And then this is where, you know, you would want to, and this is admin, so it'll not let you do it. And guest is disabled here. Okay. So, all right. So it doesn't, it checks for the complexity also. So if you have a user that you need to reset it, you can just right click and see it there. Enable disabled account, adding to the group, sending email. So email is included in one of the properties as well, right? Okay. Left the company, so don't delete the user. And not ready to use, so you're creating a new user, so don't keep it open until it's needed, right? Extended leave, so don't delete. Disable, enable. Okay. DSMod can manage user. By the way, there's a third way. So we have actually 4 different ways. We have gazillions of tools in the PowerShell now for Active Directory. All of these tools that were used before, I showed you, they're even in here. And then for accounts, passwords, there's this net. This is ancient tool that still exists that you can create, not directly all domain related stuff, but for local stuff, you can do pretty much anything with a net user. You can do sharing of resources on the computer, and you can manage user as well. Okay, so the net user, you just type in the name of the user, and you can change password right there by typing the password. Okay, that's all you have to do. So I can, let's see if it's disabled. I can enable it as well, which means active, yes or no. Can active to set the user active. Okay, I can try here the guest, and all right. So because it's disabled, oh, complexity. Look at that. It goes by the complexity as well. So let me try password, and disabled or not, I just changed the guest password as well. Okay, so the net user, not even mentioned in the book, is a very powerful tool that still works and can be used in the command line as well. Okay, all right. Other than that, everything else is sort of practiced as well in the labs. Okay, selecting multiple users, just like your regular file manager, you can use Control or Shift and select multiple and edit them. I mean, you cannot do a lot of stuff with selecting multiple users, but the description on the computers we saw, I showed you earlier. Actions can be performed. Okay. PowerShell, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff you can do with PowerShell, of course. General tab, okay. We looked at those. Yeah, we looked at these. A lot of information. Primary group button. Okay, some of the casing can be applicable when you have a mixed environment with Unix, Linux. Contacts, distribution group. I'm not going to spend now time on all of these. Scope. Okay, group type. So security distribution, we had that on the overview there, right? So I showed you the distribution group back for emailing. Okay. Security groups. So added. Only security groups can be added to the discretionary access control list. Converting groups types is not commonly done. Yeah, it's really, you know, not really needed. So much specific use, and the distribution groups are mostly used for like the emailing type of groups like I showed you only. Domain local, global, and universal. So this can be a little confusing, the different type of scopes. Domain local, global. In general, it's relatively simple, which means you have domain local, which means it's local only to the domain. Global means that it will be a user that has the rights specified across multiple domains, okay? And then universal can be tricky with a mix of different rules of what with the scope can be done. But here you have some nice little table that compares that, okay? Possible members can be member of, and permissions and rights assignment. So here it's sort of sorted out. So user accounts, computer, so this is from the Active Directory type of objects, what can be in there, can be member of. So it doesn't tell you really the purpose of these. It's just, you know, what it can be, you know, how it's configured or what can be done. Resources on any DC member computer in a domain in the forest and trust. So that's the, okay, trust assignments, yeah. Not gonna go to that. So this sort gives you just the facts of who they will be members of, but when, you know, you don't necessarily need the universal most of the time. With a simple multi-domain structure, you will be good to go just with these two types of scopes. Universal is for administrative type of tasks for the most part. Domain local to domain resources, okay. Single domain. So here's sort of the hierarchy, okay? So they have like an acronym from this. So accounts are made members of global groups, which are made members of domain local groups, which are assigned permissions to resources. So this is sort of the hierarchy of the grouping. So you are assigning permissions to domain local groups, and then you make global groups members of the local groups, and you make the accounts members of the global groups. Now, this is not like a law that you have to do it. This is just a recommendation how to make it the easiest if you have a hierarchy of groups within the groups. You can assign permissions to individual accounts, but then if that account, if that user is gonna change department, then you're gonna have to go and make a lot of changing. You could use templates But the easiest would be if you have your Active Directory structure organized by, you know, the OU hierarchy as we discussed, that will be part of, you know, the domains. And then these different, these groups, this grouping would be mapping as well. So then you actually assigning permissions to these domain local groups, and you make these memberships, either accounts are member of the domain local or the global group. So this global groups would have, you know, the members based upon, again, geography. Maybe everybody in Europe would be in the global group. Everybody in US will be in another global group. So that's one differentiation. And then you can make these members of, you know, either managers that go across geography, right? So then it will sift all the managers from Europe into the domain local group that is only for managers that will have certain permissions to resources in the domain, okay? So we usually would see this in a local computers, how you organize access to resources and make it more manageable by using groups in general. So now it's more complicated by using these additional groups, but complicated. It actually in the end should simplify how you provide access and how you can easily make changes. Okay, and there's another acronym. Users from different domains are assigned access to resource using, that's a great word. So again, this is the end. You want to assign permission to resource. That means printer, files, anything, right? Any resources. So this is the end here. So we already have that, you know, domain local in the previous one also. But if you have a multi-domain environment, this is new. You have the universal group, okay, plugged in, and global groups. So this is a scenario where you can have, you know, global groups be members of global groups, and that can be an extra. It's just for the fact that you can make, you know, groups being members of groups. That's nothing new, but you would usually do it. This is the place where you would do it. The global groups within global groups. And there can be another insert here. But then if you have multi-domain, then universal groups grow to join multi-domain environment together. Okay, so the unifying feature of having multiple domains talking to each other is the universal groups, okay? This is the linking between domains, the universal group. Okay, that's the sort of idea of that, comparing to this one here, right? So single domain, single domain. Okay. Global group. So it's specified here. So you can see here that you have the universal groups, a shared folder to a resource. So there's not an example, I guess, from the previous one there. US, UK, 2 unique locations, and these are 2 global groups. Then you have them to be, if they should have access to this folder. So this is the final assignment of the permission to that folder. Then you have these 2 global groups being member of a universal group. And we're talking sales, right? So this can be duplicated for other departments also between, you know, these different locations. So if you want all of the sales members to have access to this particular folder, then that's the example of how it would go. So you join the global groups to a universal group, then the global local, and then to the resource, okay? Universal group contains objects from any domain in the forest, and universal, it has caching, so there's caching also involved on the domain controller to keep a local copy of universal group membership after querying a global catalog server. So, you know, that they can easily find objects from any of those domains. Local groups are in the same. So that's outside of the scope of the domain. Local groups are always in the same. When computer joins the domain, Windows changes the membership of two local group automatically. So administrators, domain admin global group is made a member, and users, domain user global group is made a member. So that's automatic when you join domain. Okay, and local group given the following local users, domain user accounts and computers accounts from any domain in the forest. So you can add to local computer. So usually when you have like the lab computers on the college also, right? So you add on the machine, then the group, like students, let's say, domain local group, and then if your student account is created and you log into the computer, then because of that group being added on that computer, you can also log into that computer without having a unique account on there. Okay, so this is how all like labs at NOVA work also. So you add the domain groups to the computers, and because you are part of the domain, you can log on to the computer. Nesting, I'm gonna stop here. Nesting global groups, okay. Group scope can be converted. Okay, that's a special situation also. You can convert the scopes of the existing groups. Okay. Build in folder. No, not stopping here. Computer accounts are created Active Directory. We said that. That was on the overview there as well. In security principle is a security principle with an SID and password must authenticate to the domain. Okay, computer account. So these sort of act just like any other object, so they do authenticate as well. Users log on to the computers that are domain members. Single sign-on, Active Directory search, group policies. Well, that's sort of like when you start with Active Directory, yes. So you definitely, that's one of the big reasons of having all this stuff. You have single sign-on, means no matter what computer you go to, you can sign on to the computer and have access to all the objects in that easily and quickly, right? So if I would be, I'm probably already out already here and I don't have any other computers running, but if I go to network right here, well, it's turned off right now here and I don't have any other computers, but normally in the Active Directory, you would go to network and you would see the whole list pretty much instantly of all network resources, all computers within your domain, and you can access them easily. Any searches can be done easily because of it. If you are a standalone machine and you go to network, to list any computers will take a while because it's using a local broadcasting only. Okay, so that's the main idea behind the whole Active Directory stuff. Policies can be applied. We said that remote management can be done as well. Now, remote management can be done without domain, but it makes it easier because you have this global access to everything. Computer accounts are created two ways. Okay. A user changes the computer membership from workgroup to domain. Then we had that under overview also. And the administrator can create it manually. So you can create them ahead of time before they join as well. Computer accounts are created when computer joins the domain. Yep, okay. Nothing new here. How to do it on the command line, okay. Managing accounts, okay. Not stopping here. And that's the last part here. All of those command line tools can be created into a batch file, and you can have scripts for management as well as user scripts. You can also automate the PowerShell. There's a tool for that built in. Actually, it's built in all computers now, so that's not just, let's see. This ISE is actually an environment that can create scripting. So you have access to all the commands, and you would be able to relatively easily with the PowerShell create scripts. Unlike, of course, on a command line, you just use, Notepad, some editor for that. So scripting is important part of admin on large scale. Here are those command line tools, how to get help. And so the syntax can be quite cumbersome. If you have any names with spaces, you have to keep using quotation marks. So syntax can be tedious. So fortunately in the labs, I'm sure you're going to be using the copy paste for any of the longer type of typing. All right. This is how it looks like when you export one of the parts of your Active Directory. So you can see the delimited, comma delimited CSV file. Now this one can be opened not just in the Notepad. You can just directly open in the spreadsheet, and it's going to be already columnized in the spreadsheet. So spreadsheets makes it way easier to work with this. And then you can see how you can just export information about one particular object. So these are all the different piece of information of a particular object. Okay, just like you would be looking at the tabs of the object in the Active Directory, then you can export them and see them one by one here. You can also import them this way. Okay, another example of the syntax of the properties of the object. Okay. Ta-da-da, same thing. Okay. To reset password, well, I showed you, I mean, the tool I showed you with the NetUser has a limited possibilities in the domain world. So with one of these PowerShell tools, you can do much more. And you can see also it's much more complicated to do that. Adding a user. Ta-da-da. I am cooked. I don't know about you. What do you think? Same here. Sylvia's brain is on fire. So that was really sort of a little rush now here. But I think, what do you think to start with the end? I think it helps a little bit, at least at the beginning. It gives you a little bit sense of, you had sort of pre-announcement of what is it going to be. and I didn't go into any details right now either. But I think we'll do it next time again. We'll start with the end, and then I'm hopefully gonna focus on only a few things. I just did go flat through everything, and then I was skipping a lot of stuff. Well, either way, that's what it is. Now you have an idea about chapter 2, and what's awaiting you is clear as well. You have 3 items. Now it's not a long list, but those 2 that those life labs do take some time. The simulated is not that bad. That one is usually relatively short. And I'm just going to create one of those quizzes again, and we're good to go until next week. So unless you have some questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I had a question. So, you know, the labs that we did from the first book, the ones that we had to send you the Word docs. So are we, since that's still a part of MindTap, are we still able to submit those if we had some of those assignments that we missed
Yes, you can.
for 10% off?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't think I cut them off. I think the, let's see, I'm not sure now still if I start the second MindTap, where is it? Right here. If it somehow collides with the other one. I don't know if I can run both of them at the same time, but I think the deadlines are bound by the end of the semester.
Yes.
That just reminds me, I think I just choked these to, this is the, where's the other ones here? Due, well, that's the doomsday, due day, but where's the end of the semester? I don't see the end of the semester.
That does show up. It shows up as like, you know, we can submit it late with 10% off until like May something, I think. But I meant like the other ones, the ones that we had to take the screenshots ourselves manually and then sent them attached to in a Word document.
Yeah, I'm not clear about the rules there. Like if you would retake those and you had like 100% and you would resubmit them, it will give you the last score, not the highest score, and that would be 10% off. So if you had like 50% because of some questions, but that's not, that's screenshots, right? Screenshots, if you did take them, if you skip them, you didn't get credit for them. So let's say they're like 50% in the past. So now if you're retaking it, the highest one you can get is 90%. If you had 100% before, you're gonna go down to 90%.
But the ones that are like the 10-point ones that you're grading manually?
Oh, those.
Yes.
But I didn't grade them in MindTap.
Yes, so
I
that's
mean,
what I mean.
yeah, I did
So
grade them in
Canvas.
In Canvas.
Yeah, so can we still get 9 points on those instead of 10 if we submit those late since they're still MindTap related?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that rule programmed in my brain because I was doing those manually within the MindTap there, right? So that this is just a gradebook rule there, whatever is graded by the MindTap. So yes, oh my God, you're gonna make me work so hard. So you're gonna be submitting those old ones there. Yeah, sure, do that. I think they're zeroed right now already, right?
Yes, and then there's one that I have that like I did submit it, and well, there's a few that I have submitted, and then there's one in particular that I submitted right at 8 o'clock, and it keeps going back and forth between like 9 out of 10, and then it switches to 0 out of 10, and then so that's why I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but remind me, okay, because there's so many columns there in the gradebook. So if you're submitting something from the past there, those labs, the MindTap labs that were submittable in Canvas, then please send me an email about it so I can go in and go through that, look at it, okay?
All right, thank you.
Sure. Any
Professor,
other questions?
I was wondering if it would be possible to share that Azure link once you shared with us, because I went through my email and couldn't really find it.
Which
I need
link?
virtual machines, the Azure link.
Azure. Azure.
You gave us a link once and you said we could download free software.
Yeah, I know.
The Centrix, I think, is what he's talking about.
Is it still here? Yes, it is. So it's still available if you go to the home external class material for the 740 external resources.
I got it. Thank you very much, Professor. I appreciate it.
So I don't know if Microsoft did anything. I just sort of gave up on them. So I know that whoever was in there before is able to use it, but it's not now authenticating you if you are like brand new user. But if you used it before, then you can use it. Yeah.
So I did use it before.
So you should be able to get in. Yeah.
Download anything. I got a product key for one thing, and I think it was a 2016 Windows Server. But now I tried logging in, it wouldn't allow me. It was just redirecting me somewhere else and said that I'm not.
Well, again, you use this link, and then you need to use. You see, it prompts me for my domain user. This will actually for me. I forgot. Oh no, it has to be your student account.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to put in there the whole email address.
Yeah.
And then it probably might prompt you for
password.
Oh, it didn't. Okay, I don't know. It still might come up. They do have now two-way authentication now as well built in.
Okay.
So let me see if it's gonna hit me. I'm not gonna go to play the game with them. No, it's fine. It looks like it's able to get me in there. So.
You are.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, I would have to let them, through the text thing. But I'm in basically.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So if you're going in from a different network, then they will prompt you for the text message there. But otherwise, if you get this far, then you're able to use that.
Got it. Thank you, Professor.
Just might need to do this. So that's the Azure, right? Okay. And there's also other places, this eval, and it's nothing like having your own machine on your own computer, even though you could download this from within the machine I just showed you earlier today. Remember the virtual student? So, go ahead and try that thing. But I think they might realize that I told them they should put virtual machines in their pre-copy existing ISO images or actually virtual machines in there so that you can go in. Because if you would be downloading it, one by one, I think they will realize that they are shooting themselves in the foot. It's going to take a lot of bandwidth, everybody downloading their own images and virtual machines to their VDI. But go ahead and try it. You can do it there too. You have now hypervisor there as well. So that's another way. But yeah, this thing, if you can make it work with the Azure, good for you, because that's images that are your. Oh, by the way, any way you get to the images, if you cannot get to the Azure, I do have access to the activation keys for Microsoft servers that I can provide you with against your email request, your personal one, okay?
Very much, Professor. I appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? No questions, so I'm stopping recording.